Hey, what's up? It's me, Gazbot, and I'm here with another 15-minute sketch. I'm messing around with the OBS Open Broadcast software to try to get my face as well as what I'm sketching. So I'm going to be doing a 15-minute sketch today of the Marvel character Speedball, sort of the Neo version of him. Not Neo as in the Matrix, but Neo as in New, like sort of his pre-penance version. Doesn't matter. Anyway, he's a goofy character. I'm going to try to do him in about 15 minutes. This is sort of a warm-up thing I do that I just occasionally record. This actually was a request. I threw out a thing if anybody wanted to do it, and a few people threw out a few names, and I grabbed Speedball, and Pete Capella was the one who requested it. So I'm going to take my iPhone and set a timer, and it is started. So here I go. I'm looking down. Now, I haven't read anything of Speedball since he became Penance, which was during the first Civil War. Not the one in America, but the one in the comics, which is funny because it happened years ago in comics, but now it's, I already don't like what I'm doing, but now it's just coming out in the movies for Captain America. And it's a much smaller event, obviously, but in the original Civil War, and these are minor, well, they're major spoilers, but I guess the storyline's been over for a while. Uh, Speedball was a huge part of the original Civil War. He was involved in an incident when he was with the New Warriors that accidentally blew up, I think it was Nitro, and hurt or killed a bunch of people. And that led to the Superpowers Registration Act, which was similar to the Mutant Registration Act that had happened in X-Men years ago, but went further. And you notice I am wasting time not being happy with this. Normally with my warm sketches, I just do a face, but I feel like with Speedball, his whole thing is he's a kinetic bouncing around guy. And I feel like it has to be a full body to get a crazy pose out of him. But again, I mean, I maybe have drawn him once, so this is I have a habit of picking things I'm not familiar with or good at drawing necessarily for these warm-ups, which is good for a warm-up, but not necessarily interesting to watch or whatever. But again, this isn't about me showing you an amazing piece of art. It's about me doing a warm-up and recording it. But anyway, yeah, Speedball, he was sort of a goofy character. I believe Steve Ditko created him originally, and he's been reinterpreted a few times. I most knew him from his New Warriors run in the 90s. And then again in Civil War when he showed up and sort of started Civil War. I'm guessing in the movie, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm guessing in the movie he doesn't even show up. In the comics, the Marvel comics, pretty much every single character had to be involved in some way, shape, or form because it was such a big deal. But in the movie, obviously, they don't have to do that. You know what? I'm zooming in too soon. Let me see. And as I've said before, I like to do a couple layers of low opacity. So I did that using a brush at 75% opacity, and then I took the whole layer and turned it into 50%. I'm not going to do the math on that, but it's less than 50%. And now I'm doing the same thing, kind of a quick cleanup. And I'm not worrying about his costume or any of his other identifying factors. I'm just trying to get a rough anatomically, let's say plausible, maybe not accurate, but plausible pose down. And he is one of those characters that's very bendy, very Spider-Man-y, only more so because, and again, I'm speaking mainly of old school Speedball. I don't know if he's even shown up in like the new Marvel Now or whatever you call it, but his powers, as I remember them, were very kinetic based. He could bounce around and he was sort of invincible and he had all these crazy little energy balls flipping around, but he didn't have a lot of control. It was sort of like Flubber, the superhero. So that's, he needs to have sort of a wacky pose that maybe isn't exactly what somebody would be in if they were bouncing around and had control. But he is in the realm of a Spider-Man type character for that reason, but less, plausible, less bound by physics. Yes. All right. And that chotes. Now I have a reference up on my other screen, which I am gonna look at just to see, kind of remember what his costume looks like. And again, this isn't the classic costume, but it's sort of the postmodern Speedball. It's the costume that looks similar to his original costume, but got rid of sort of that squiggly line stuff that Ditko had put in and replaced it with more of a solid orange, and his mask became a little bit more utilitarian looking and less goofy. I mean, he's still a goofy character inherently, except when he became Penance and he was the ultimate, anti-hero. Even though it was in the 2000s, it very much reminded me of like a 90s image kind of thing. All right, so I'm gonna take that bottom one, put it down to 25, put that middle one, put it to 50, and we have 11 minutes left. So now I'm gonna probably, because I want to put color because that's really important. I was using a 19 brush. I'm gonna go down to 13, and I'm actually gonna zoom in a bit. And this might be my final layer. Again, if this was a real drawing, a finished drawing, this would absolutely not be my final layer. But time being what it is, this is probably my last shot, and I want him to be, you know, muscular in shape but thin. Again, like a Spider-Man. He shouldn't look like a Superman, but he should be a superhero on the thin side. He's burning up all his energy, bouncing around like a freak boy. All right, so he kind of has these metal cuffs, and then these are his flat balls. They're like Speedballs, but they're flat on his hand. And he's got gloves, but his gloves are not made of the same material. He's sort of got like a blue. It's probably supposed to be like Kevlar or some kind of, Mr. Fantastic invented something that looks like spandex, but his armor. And he kind of has that under his whole thing, and then has sort of metallic looking gauntlets and this thing on his shoulder, which previously was that, I can't think of the word for it, but it was sort of like a squiggly, very 60s, 70s Art Nouveau, new whatever, Art Deco kind of look. So they've kept that area the same and kept the color basically the same, but turned it into a more of a flexible metal, as opposed to that something that was more of like a design movement on his suit. All right, so put that in, and then his face. And depending on who's doing him or when, he has longer and shorter hair. He always has a little bit long hair to, I guess, to help make him crazy kinetic, to add to the things in your toolbox to make him look like he's full of motion, because that's, again, what the character is all about. Sometimes it's gigantic Tarzan hair or bigger, like a lion. Sometimes it's just a little bit longer than normal, hair might be. I'm kind of going in a middle ground where it's definitely a big puff of hair, but somewhat manageable. He could put it under a hat and go into a movie, and people would not be angry at him for blocking the view. I mean, not that people hate people with large hair, although people, maybe there is a subsect hate group against large hair I'm unaware of. And if it is, it'd be in the Marvel universe, and the X-Men would fight against it. So I'm going to give him also a smile, because while there have been hardships, especially like again with the comic version of Civil War, he is a goofy character that should sort of be smiling. Whoa, I'm bouncing out of control, guys. I'm trying to think of Speedball's real name, and I can't remember it. I'm sure I could look it up, but not right now, because I've got less than 10 minutes. I have 8 minutes, 18 seconds. 8 minutes, 18 seconds. I'm off frame. Yeah, that's the frame. There. All right, and I'll give him, I don't want to give him white in his eyes like the average X-Men mutants, because again, he's sort of a more relatable, human-y kind of guy, and those ears were in the wrong spot, so I'll move them down. And yeah, the hair is kind of wacky. Okay, I'm spending too long on this. Let me, though, quick erase some of that, because I made him look a little too old. He should be youngish. I mean, at one point he was in New Warriors, which were like teenagers. He may have been gotten a little older, but the way comics work, he's been around, 50 years, so now he's 22. All right. And as I said, I normally wouldn't do this much of a character, because, I guess I could have it done this way, but in terms of the whole body, but I'd like to put some color. I want to put some of his energy effects. If I was just going for like a rough pencil sketch or a rough ink or whatever, I would more often do these full bodies, but because of the nature, especially of this one, wow, those fingers look wacky. He's got a big pointy middle finger. Watch out. If you cut him off, he's going to stab you with his middle finger. That's his real power. Anger finger. All right. Now, the beauty of digital is I think that hand is gigantic, so I'm going to grab it and just shrink it. La 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 la. De. La la la. I'm going to go ahead and erase that bottom layer. So now I only have two left. I have this one and the one I'm working over. And I'm going to change my reference real quick, because the one I'm looking at, I can't see if he has like little underwear section or not. Oh, I see. He kind of has like color cut in. And again, I'm sort of also probably merging 2 or 3 different versions of his newer costume. So this is not a canon representation of what he looks like at any particular time. I'm going to give him a little bit more hair back here too, I think. That looks a little better. I can see why they go big. But I am then going to erase some in here. La 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 la. So it doesn't look so perfectly shaped. Okay, legs. He should have legs, right? Okay, legs. A little divot for his little butt muscle. And cut in for his knee bones. And then so what does he have for feet? What's on his feet in the costume man world? And that I can't tell on that one. All right. Again, it's sort of different, slightly different designs each picture. From different eras, but also even in the same era from different artists, especially when a costume changed. Like if it's been Spider-Man and it's been the same for X many years, unless there's a storyline where he has a different costume for some reason, regardless of the artist, it's going to basically be the same. They might put their own flair on it, but when it's a lesser known character that isn't around as much, or when a character's just changed costumes, then you're more likely to find variation, and it makes them less iconic, but it also makes them a little easier to draw in terms of, well, if I make the costume slightly different, 99% of people won't call me on it because they don't even know. I mean, the artists working on it at the time weren't even 100% sure what was the official, Marvel standard, and it probably won't matter until he gets a movie or a cartoon or something like that. All right, so that knee looks crazy, but I'm running out of time, so I might just have to leave the leg. The whole leg looks a little crazy, to be honest. Yeah, that foot looks crazy, but again, he's supposed to be sort of this awkward. Wow, you have 4.5 minutes. Okay, we're gonna call that part done. We'll drop this down to 25. We'll leave that as is, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put a new layer in for color. I'm gonna quick save. And then in all versions, he has a blue costume. It's different, varying shades of blue. But I'll kind of grab a middle loose blue, and I'll use the same custom brush I used if you watched my Luke Skywalker one. Ha! And it gives it sort of a spray painty thing. I'm at 75 opacity, so I could get some variation of color if I go back over it a second time. And I have to make this a little bit smaller, I think, to get the hands. Again, it's all sort of like he's wearing one blue undersuit with stuff on top of it. I'm doing this at 75. I realize I usually probably do this more at like 50, but we're cruising without a net, folks. We're just flying around like Dick Grayson. Not his parents, they didn't do so well. But again, that wasn't because of lack of acrobatic skill. It was more they were murdered. So as long as we're not murdered, we're fine. And then I will go ahead and grab an orange. Again, it sort of fits the original color scheme of the orangish yellow that he had since the beginning. So while some of the details have changed, blue and orange suit, some energy bubbles. That's the other thing. I could get some energy bubbles in, and I am running short on time. We are at 3 minutes, 14 seconds. And once again, who knows? Maybe I'll cheat like I often do, like where I sort of get it all done and then just noodle with the extra color for an extra second. All right, and then I'll put some yellow in for his hair. He's kind of got dirty blonde hair. It's close to the color of his orange in his suit, but it should be distinct because it's not, metal, and his suit isn't based on his hair color. It's not like they color matched it at some sort of convention. What? Is there a convention for color matching? I don't know. Here's flesh. Flesh, Caucasian flesh specifically, I should say. There's that. Okay, now I want to go in and put some shading, but before I do that, I'm going to go in and put some crazy ball energy, but I'll use a different brush. I'll use this brush. Wow, I'm speedballing. Here's a bunch of red dots. I think the newer Speedball, the older one, it was like just like rainbow crazies, and I think the newer Speedball, it's more like yellow energy consistent, or at least some of the pictures I've seen. But I want to go with, even though I'm going with the newer costume, I want to go with the older Speedball kind of thing because I like the rainbow crazy. I think it makes him more interesting and more unique and more goofy and speedball-y. Yes. Why am I taking so long to pick a color? I need to get some bigger ones here. There we go. I will do a lot of yellow, though. I'll put more behind him here so it looks like he's sort of flying in that direction. Switch color to blue. Yes. Yes, blue, the color of the ocean, the color of the eyes of a young Mark Hamill, and an old Mark Hamill, too. And some purple. I would like to play around with this energy more. I feel like I could do some fun things and like really flare it up. But time is the enemy. And this isn't supposed to be a finished piece of art. It's supposed to be a warm-up / experiment. And we've got 1 minute, 14 seconds left. Good. All right, so I'm going to do a quick color in the background. What color? It's going to be this gray because everything else is so bright. So we'll go ahead and do this. But I don't like that it's, oh crud, I hit open by mistake. But I don't like that it's going through him, so I'll quick erase some of the middle there. Yes, it's the Mario Brothers theme song. Applies to Speedball as well. Why not? Why not? All right, but then I'm also going to lower the opacity on that to 25 and maybe make it 50. 50, hi-oh, and then I'm going to put another layer with a lighter Cholets, and then I'll bring the Cadaver, right, guys? Yeah, Cadaver. Just so it's not quite so flat there. Just to give it a little something. And I'm really cramming the blam. Cramming the blam is a scientific term mostly allocated to wilderness pets. What's a wilderness pet? I don't know. That shouldn't have been 100%. That should be 50%. Yada-da, yada-da, yada-da. Hey, look, 15 minutes. All right, so this is where I cheat because I'm sort of supposed to be done, but I'm going to put in a few more layers. So cheaty McCheat cheat, here I go. I want some white. Oh, wait, that's erase. I want some white. And then I want some yellow. Yellow-green. And I'll let you know how much cheating I go over. That's too much. Too many. There, I'll give him some bounce. That looks crazy. But then, when I go in here, it still looks crazy. Failure. All right, whatever. I shouldn't even be doing this. I make it 50%. All right, and then I'm going to real quick. Normally I like to use the color that it is to create the shadow. In other words, a darker blue, lighter blue, etc. But since I'm in cheat mode here, I'm just going to go ahead and do everything as black, which is sometimes known as cell shading. So this looks very harsh, I realize, but I'm going to lighten up the whole layer in a minute. And I'm trying to imagine a light source, but I don't really have time. So the light source is sort of behind him, like as though his energy is blasting light as well from behind him. And then I'll take that whole thing and lower that to 25. And then I'll make another layer, use white. Actually, I'll use a yellow white since most of his energy is yellow white. And I'll do the exact same thing, but for highlights. And I'm using a brush. I think I should be getting some more line variation, but sometimes Photoshop kills that ability and I have to restart it, but I don't have time to restart it. So we're getting these big chunky lights, and then I'm gonna take that and bring it down to 25. And then the very last thing I'll do is just put in a little bit of whitish blue for his goggles. And then, okay, I lied, I'm gonna do one more thing because this gray background is not looking like I want it to. I'm gonna erase that. I'm gonna put in some splangs. Yeah, here come the splangs, everybody. What is splangs? I think he's the kind of character that needs one of these jams. And I'm gonna just make a big lot like that. And then I'll fill it with white. And then drop that down, well, let's say 75. Okay, I'm not thrilled with this, but it is done. That is the 15-minute warm-up of Speedball from Marvel Comics. Thank you, Pete Capella, for the suggestion. Audi 5000, and I went over by 2.5 minutes. So that was my cheating. So it was 17.5 minutes if you want to be technical. Out. Me, I'm out.